Good day, learners. Welcome to another session of School Organization and Management. I am Dr. Tandra Sharma, Professor, Jagannath Institute of Education. Today, I'm going to talk about another topic under Unit 3, Dynamics of Supervision. The topic is democratic decision-making, concept and procedure with respect to functioning of a school. The points to be covered in this topic are democratic decision-making concept, the procedure of democratic decision-making, the 6 steps, that is identifying the problem, generating alternatives, evaluating alternatives, choosing an alternative, implementing the decision, and evaluating decision effectiveness. And lastly, the special problems in decision-making. Decision-making is one of the most important activities in which the school administrators engage daily. The success of a school is critically linked to effective decisions. Decisions are made at all levels of school organization. The superintendent makes decisions concerning a school district's goals and strategies. Then the principals make tactical decisions concerning those goals and strategies to accomplish them in relation to their own buildings. Department heads and team leaders then make curricular and operational decisions to carry out the day-to-day activities of a department or a unit. And finally, classroom teachers make decisions in their classrooms. There are various definitions which will make the concept more clear. According to Essenfer, decision-making is a process of making a choice from a number of alternatives to achieve a desired result. The Webster's Dictionary defines the term as the act of determining in one's own mind upon an opinion or a course of action. To quote Stephen Z. Nenwiz in his book Administration of Public Education, he writes, decision-making is a sequential process culminating in a single or series of decisions or choices which stimulate moves or actions. Decision-making is a way of life for the school administrators. Their main responsibility lies in making decisions rather than performing routine operations. The quality of the decisions made is a predominant factor in how the superintendent, for example, views a principal's performance or how a principal views a departmental head or the team leader's performance, etc. Furthermore, decision-making affects the performance of a school, the students, teachers, parents, and the community. Let us understand the procedure of decision-making with respect to functioning of the school. Basically, there are 2 models of decision-making, the rational model and the bounded rationality model. The rational model. Administrative decision-making is assumed to be rational. That is, school administrators make decisions under certainty. They know their alternatives, they know their outcomes, they know their decision criteria, and they have the ability to make the optimum choice and then to implement it. According to this model, the decision-making process can be broken down into 6 steps. Identifying the problem, generating alternatives, evaluating alternatives, choosing an alternative, implementing the decision, and evaluating the decision effectiveness. Now, let me discuss the points one by one. First, identifying the problem. School exists to achieve certain goals, such as educating the students. Within the school, each department or has to subunit or goals such as increasing test scores, reducing dropouts, and or developing new approaches to teaching. Establishing these goals becomes the basis for identifying the problem. The search for alternatives is limited by the importance of the decision, the cost and value of additional information needed to evaluate alternatives, and the number of people affected by the decision. The more important the decision, the more attention is directed to developing alternative if it helps a school administrator to achieve a specific objective or a set of goals for the school or the school district. In addition to identifying the problems, school administrators must also define the situation, which is partly a matter of determining how a specific problem arose. This is an important stage because the situation definition plays a major role in the subsequent step. The next step is the generating alternatives. Once the problem has been identified, the second step in the decision-making process is to generate alternatives to the problem. In developing these alternatives solution, the school administrators must first specify the goals that they hope to achieve through their decision. Are they trying to reduce the dropout rate, or improve the quality of instruction, or increase test score, or something else? Once school administrators have determined their goals, they can search for alternative means of reaching them. Information must be collected regarding each of the alternatives and their likely consequences. Ideally, the school administrator should seek to generate as many alternatives as possible and should attempt to ensure that the alternatives are relatively diverse, that is, not highly similar to one another. The third step in the decision-making process is evaluating the alternatives. The third step in decision-making process is evaluating each of the alternatives generated in step 2. In evaluating an alternative, the school administrators must ask the following 3 questions. Number 1, is the alternative feasible? Number 2, is it a satisfactory alternative? And number 3, what impact will it have on the people? Once alternatives have been evaluated, now choosing the right alternative is the 4th step. Once the administrator has evaluated all the alternatives, he attempts to choose the best alternative. The evaluation phase will have eliminated some of the alternatives, but in most cases, 2 or more will still remain. Suppose, for example, a school principal is hiring an English teacher and has 2 strong candidates for the position. One strategy that is frequently used is to offer the position to one candidate and keep the other candidate on hold. Should the first offer be rejected, the principal still has an acceptable alternative to filling the position. The 5th step is now implementing the decision. After choosing an alternative, the school administrator faces the challenge of implementing the decision. A sound decision can also fail if implemented poorly. It is useful, therefore, to consider some suggestions for successful implementation. Here are some suggestions. Number 1, school administrators need to make sure that the alternative is clearly understood. This is accomplished by communicating the decision to all involved staff. Effective communication is necessary for effectively implementing the decisions. Number two, school administrators need to encourage acceptance of the alternative as a necessary course of action. Committees can help a school administrator achieve commitment. If the people who must carry out the decision participate in the process, they are more likely to endorse enthusiastically the outcome. Third, school administrators need to provide enough resources to make the alternative succeed. School administrators set up budgets and schedules for the actions they have decided to undertake. Fourth, school administrators need to establish workable timelines. And fifth, school administrators need to assign responsibilities clearly. That is, what should be done by whom? Because the solution of most administrative problems requires the combined effort of many school members. Each person should understand what role he or she is to play during each phase of the implementation process. And the last step in the decision-making process is evaluating decision effectiveness. The final step in the decision-making process is evaluating the effectiveness of the decision. When the implemented decision does not produce the desired results, there are probably a number of causes. It may be incorrect definition of the problem, it may be poor evaluation of the alternatives, or improper implementation. Among these possible causes, the most common and serious error is an inadequate definition of the problem. When the problem is incorrectly defined, the alternative that is selected and implemented will not produce desired results. Therefore, evaluation is important because decision making is a continuous and a never-ending process. Evaluation provides the school administrators with information that can precipitate a new decision cycle. Evaluation is the part of the decision-making process that assesses whether a new decision needs to be made or not. Therefore, we see that before the alternatives are generated, the problem must be identified thoroughly. Decision-making is a recurring event, and the school administrators can learn from their past decisions. Apart from these, there are certain problems in decision-making There are several factors that complicate the process. These are conflicts and stress, number 2, ensuring participation of all members, third, problem of deadlines, fourth, problem of adequate information, fifth, problem of commitments, and sixth, problem of administrative behavior. Thus, decision-making in educational administration is a difficult process, a critical process. But if the administrators have a good understanding of the whole process and important concepts, it may help them in seeing the job through in most situations. Thank you.